Alright, so go ahead and get started on this then, because I told you I was going to run through this with you guys. Welcome to follow along, or you can just watch and I'll come around and help later if you need it. But I'm just going to run through this real quick. So, if we look at Lab 16B is the one that we're working on. Take a look here. I said that I want you to double the size of the dimensions as it displays. There is one missing dimension on this sheet, and that is the height of this section right here. It should be also 1/4 of an inch. While not usually the accepted way to do it, you can judge that size based on it being visually similar to the same size as the quarter here, or you can measure it, because while this is not the actual size of the shape or the dimensions that it's telling you, it is proportional, or at least it is to scale to itself. So if I was to measure this and come up with, let's say, if I measure it on the paper, it comes up like 1/2 of an inch. And I measure it there, it's also 1/2 of an inch going vertical. So it's an easy way if you are missing a dimension, although you shouldn't be missing dimensions. That was a mistake on my part. So in order to draw this shape, as always, the first thing I'm going to do is make the box that this would fit within. And I'm going to center it as best I can on the overall page, not in the isometric quadrant, which is where this one would normally be if we were doing the other three shapes. Now this one has the advantage of, having two whole sides be solid straight lines, and that's where I'm going to start off with. Now there's no real easy way to figure out how to center an isometric drawing other than my rule of thumb is that if the shape is roughly a rectangular prism that is going to be guess the base way is, so if this was, so this says it's 2 inches here and it says it's 1 1/4 wide, we're going to do double that, so 4 and 2 1/2, which means that it is roughly half as wide as it is long. It's not perfect, but it's a good rule of thumb. And so in order to do that, then I try and line up the lowest point of the drawing with the center of the spot that I'm drawing it. So in this case, that means I'm going to come down from my center point just some distance. In this case, I'm going to line it up with the horizontal measurement from my lower two center points. And I'm going to make 9 my starting point on here. So put a mark at what is 9 on my triangle, and then I'm going to count up 4 inches going this direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, which puts us at the 5-inch mark. And then I'm going to connect the two with a line. From there, I'm going to rotate it so that the short edge of my triangle is sitting on my parallel rule. I'm going to put my starting measurement at the end of this line. For me, this is 2 inches, just based on where I have my triangle positioned. And then, according to this, it's 1 1/4 inches tall, which means 2 1/2 at the scale we're drawing. So 1, 2 1/2. Okay. Now some of you have probably noticed already that this is probably going to end up going off the page. And that is true. Or at least it's going to go outside of my border here. So 2 1/2 to right there. I'm not actually off the paper, but I'm close. And sometimes that does happen with isometric drawings. And there are ways you can go about making it so that that definitely doesn't happen, but it does take a lot more time and effort than just simply drawing the shape. And that's what I want you to focus on right now. When we get further into isometrics, we'll talk more about how to position it. but you're already going to spend enough time learning this new skill rather than actually doing it in the first place. So, continuing on, I'm going to finish the rectangular prism that my shape will fit within. So I've got the basis of the two different sides done here. Come up here to the top to this point, set my pencil, and then come down 4 inches. Now remember, with a regular drafting pencil, you should be making lines that are much lighter than mine are, because most of these are going to be erased. Not all, but quite a few of them. Again, on this side, 4 inches. Counted, which brings us to the 5-inch mark on the triangle. Two and a half down. And then I'm just going to flip my triangle over and connect the dots. While it is possible to measure through the clear side of the triangle, sometimes it's a little less accurate because of the prisming effect of the edge of the triangle. So, looking at this, we want to make sure that you're being as accurate as possible. So now we have the box that our shape is going to fit inside of. Coincidentally, at this shape, it's going to be pretty close to the same scale, but not entirely. And now I'm going to go about making the shapes that are the easiest to identify. So for this one, I'm going to start off by finishing out the L shape here, because once I have the L shape done, I have enough information to complete this view and this view without doing much more in the way of measuring. So to start with, in order to find this length here, I'm going to look over on this side, which tells me that it's a 1/2 inch. So at our scale, it'll be 1 full inch. I'll make a mark. And then same at the bottom. If we look over here, if we want to find this line, we need to look over here. 1/2 inch, so same deal. This time I'm going to come up 1 inch from the lower corner. Once I've done that, if I know that my overall size is 4 inches, and I know that the remaining inch that I don't want to line, or the remaining space I don't want to line is 1 inch, then I'm going to measure out 3 inches from the mark I just made. And then connect the dots. All right. Okay. I'm going to focus on completing the shapes I can do with as little work as possible. So the top one is 1/2 inch at this scale, even though, like I said, it reads 1/4 inch. That's not right. There we go. I missed the mark a little bit. Flip my triangle over. 1 inch. And connect. Okay. Be the same deal at the bottom. This one is 3/8 inch. Well, 0.3/8 inch, but if you round that and turn it into a fraction, it'll be 3/8. So doubling that will be 3/4. Flip my triangle over again. 1, 2, 3/4 right there. Inch tall. And connect. So you can kind of start to see the 3D shape that we're going for take place here. The next place I'm going to go is to finish this front view. I'm sorry, this part of the right side view right here. The missing dimension I was telling you about earlier was 1/4 of an inch, which means that our scale is 1/2 of an inch. We don't know how far the distance between here and here is yet. Well, we could figure it out. It's just a little bit of math. But in order to do as little math as possible for this, we're going to go ahead and do this part next. Starting at the upper point, coming down 1/2 of an inch, making a mark. Okay. Down 1/2 of an inch. And then we're going to connect the bottom. Actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and do the back line as well. Fewer turns of the triangle means you get a faster drawing. Connect. Flip this over and connect these. Move it up to this point. Now there's nothing for it to connect to on the other side except a line, and that's fine. We just have to make sure we don't go over this line. Because one thing that you need to remember is that when you're drawing it isometric, you don't draw hidden lines. So those blue dashes that we've been doing on the regular drawings, on the 3-view drawings, we won't do those when we draw isometric. The overall height of this ledge area is 3/4 of an inch. So we're going 1.5 inches at our scale. That should line us up pretty nicely with the corner here. And it did. From that point, we're going to draw a line forward till we meet this line at the front. Okay. That gives us a starting point to finish this shape over here. So starting here, we're going to come over 3/4 of an inch. There we go. Going down. Now the only things we have to do left to finish this are to do this section right here and connect them. So if we look at our drawing, it says it's 1 inch. So we draw 2. Starting there, let's go back 2 inches. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Flip the triangle over and connect them. And then we'll have one line that comes down right here that stops. That's that back wall's corner. And then across the bottom, we'll have one that starts right here and goes back. And that's it. The only thing that would be left to do to complete this is to erase the rest of the boxes that we did as our starting point. Which is what I'm going to do to finish this. Now the pencil I used is one of the colored mechanical pencils. It's not an actual drafting lead, so it is a little harder to erase than your drafting lead will be. So keep that in mind if you're using something other than one of the drafting pencils, that there's a good chance that whatever it is you're using, it will be harder to erase than you're probably expecting. Most draftsmen finish their drawings in pen, But even the best draftsmen I've known in my life always start with pencil, and then they'll go back when they're finished in order to make it more permanent with a pen once they've got everything in place. Now I'm going to have a couple of corners that I'm going to have to redraw in here, and that's acceptable. Like, at this point you can use a straight edge and not use the parallel rule as long as you are following the lines that you're doing to fix any erasing mistakes. Okay. When you have erasing shavings like this, remember, this is why we have the brush. That way we don't end up smearing any more marks over the surface of the paper. It's a sign of a competent draftsman is a clean paper when they're done. That's essentially it. All right. Hope you join us next time on The Joy of Drafting.